You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We're here to answer your pressing questions, so ask away. Today I have with me Paul Peterson. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Paul is the CEO of the OCD and Anxiety Centers, and Paul is dedicated to helping others with anxiety. And the belief is that anxiety and OCD is something that is not just treated, but is what? What would you say? What's your belief?
OCD is not what most people think, and anxiety isn't what most people think, right? We watch TV, we look at the news, movies, and it gives a perception of something that it really isn't. In fact, what I would say is that our centers, 3% of the people suffering are what people think it is, and then there's about 97% as everything else. And so, but unfortunately, they're too scared to share what those thoughts are out of judgment.
Okay, so let's go back to what do people think it is? Let's talk about what people think OCD and anxiety. Well, actually, let's introduce you first.
Yes,
let's back up.
Sounds good.
So I want to introduce you because I think your story is fascinating, and I'll tell our listeners. Then I'd actually like you to tell us more because I think it's richer coming from you. But OCD is something you're very familiar with. Family members, your wife and children, right?
Yes.
Have OCD. And so I would imagine that's what led you to this career. Tell us a little bit about your background with OCD.
Yeah. Well, in 2000, I saw my first client, and they had OCD, and I loved it. It was so amazing. And I started reading some books about it. And then in 2001, I was married, and within a very short period of time, I find out that my wife has OCD. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I pulled out all my tricks out of my bag, and I used them on her, and there was a point where she started saying, stop therapizing me.
Yeah, you can't do that to your spouse. We've all had that experience as therapists.
That's right. And so it didn't work.
So because of your family experience as well as your clinical experience, it sounds like it led you to your interest in OCD. So tell us a little bit about where the OCD and Anxiety Centers started and kind of your passion behind it, and then we'll get to our listener question.
Yeah. Well, my son, his OCD was not going well. And by 2008, I really hunkered down trying to figure out how to save my family. And I ran into the International OCD Foundation, and I saw that in 3 weeks from that point, they were having this conference back east. I went to it, and it changed my world. I came back realizing that I had been damaging my clients, that all these techniques that I was taught in school, all the things my supervisors had told me were the absolutely opposite of what I should be doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me, what were you doing, and what was the problem?
Yeah, well, what I was doing is, you hear that you've got to figure it out. You got to understand, why is it happening? Because there's got to be a reason, right? Is it because you have a bad growing up experience? Is it because your family rejects you? Is it because, people don't like you, or that you've made big mistakes that are unforgivable? You think that there's got to be a reason for it.
Well, we're meaning-making machines, right? We're saying, what is going on here? We're trying to make meaning of our experiences. Yeah.
But is it possible that what's happening is that the brain is actually just malfunctioning? Is it so impossible to believe that the brain can malfunction? And if it malfunctions, well, how much control are you supposed to have over it? If somebody was on fire and they were panicking and they were being really rude, how would you respond to that person? Would you be like, oh my gosh, what's up? What's your problem?
I know how I'd want to respond. Now, how I actually would respond, those might be two different things, right?
But the thing is, you don't think with your shoulder, you don't think with your pancreas. So nobody would ever consider telling you to knock it off if you were having diabetes symptoms, or, oh, you got stage 4 cancer, and man, you're throwing up all the time. Like, well, seriously, what's your problem? Get over it. You should probably just love yourself more. Right? Have you considered?
How would that go over?
I know. Have you considered coming closer to God? Okay, so then I'll stop throwing up with my cancer? What? Is that really how it works? But I think that's what I got from that conference, is that the brain is malfunctioning. And so 100%, if you have an OCD or anxiety disorder, that thing that is consuming your thoughts, that is overwhelming you, is absolutely not your problem.
Tell me what the problem is.
The problem is that the brain is lying to the body, saying that something is happening that is not actually happening.
Okay.
That's the problem. The problem is you're having a thought that all of us have. Everybody has had thoughts, oh, did I make a mistake? Did I do something unforgivable? Have I been judged? Am I hurting somebody? Am I disappointing, letting them down? Have I had family problems? We've all had it. But the difference is that if you don't have a diagnosis of OCD or anxiety, you have those thoughts and they just move on. And then you go live your life. But then what happens is when this problem's going on, all of a sudden I'm a 7 about it.
7 out of a 10.
7 out of 10. Why would I be a 7 if there's not truth to it? And we are explorers of truth.
We better be.
Right?
Well,
that's right. Why would we have this if it wasn't true? And so what does the brain do? It seeks for certainty. In fact, actually, certainty is the kryptonite of OCD or anxiety, because they want to know. Am I as bad as I think I am? Am I going to do that horrible thing? Am I disappointing this person? Am I going to let them down? Am I? Well, if I am, well, I don't know if I could live with myself.
Yes. It makes so much sense that the brain is trying to find certainty, and that this is the way of doing it, right? We're gonna do these compulsions, and maybe that'll make me feel better, and it'll make me safe, right? When you say that, I think safety. So let's go to our listener question and really try to help this listener about this recent OCD diagnosis. So here's the question. I was recently diagnosed with OCD, and I'm struggling with treatment. I don't really understand how ERP works. We're going to talk about what that is. Yeah. And when it comes to rumination and mental obsessions, and I'm worried about how this might affect my relationships. Yeah. That's probably a very similar sentiment to what you see at your centers.
Right.
So let's first of all talk about, for those people that are new to OCD, let's talk about what OCD is and what it is not. Okay. So what is OCD in a nutshell?
So OCD is where somebody has an intrusive thought. It's a thought that goes contrary to their belief system, something that is so assaultive to them. They don't want this thing to happen. And it triggers a fear response, a terror response. They're terrified that, man, maybe that building will fall down because I had this thought, or maybe I will drive a car and run somebody over, or maybe I won't do this right, or maybe I have disappointed God, or maybe I wasn't being as honest as I could be. There's so many different offshoots of what the topic could be, but ultimately at the end of it is that the reason so they have these obsessive thoughts, and they're only obsessive because if you were an 8 out of 10 on fire, how obsessive would you be about the pain you're feeling?
Pretty obsessive.
It pretty much blinds out everything around you.
Yeah. But I want to stop right there really quick, because I think this is important. When you talked about obsessive thoughts, a piece of OCD that I didn't understand until recently that I think is really valuable is it's often tied to your values, right? So if you are very worried about being truthful and that honesty matters to you, then if you have OCD, you might worry, oh my gosh, am I lying here? Yeah. Or was that a full truth, right? So it attacks the things that we value the most, which is why it's so distressing.
Right. Well, and that's absolutely right. I've said for many years, it's like a parasite. It goes into the core of who you are, finds what you value the very most, and exploits it.
Which, just that. I mean, when you say that, I think that gives me tremendous compassion.
Yeah.
If a person is saying, this matters most to me, this is one of my core values, and then you're feeling like, man, this is being attacked all the time in my brain.
Yes.
Boy, that is, when you talk about suffering, that feels like suffering.
Yes. It is. And the worst part of it is that thought isn't the problem. It just grabbed onto that thought because there's this intensity of emotion. And when that intensity is happening, the brain instantly tries to fill in the blanks. So for example, if I went to a whiteboard and I had a marker and I start writing a letter, I bet I don't even have to get to the whole completing the letter before your brain will be able to figure out what letter I'm writing. It fills in the blanks. That's what our brains do. And they're so good at meaning-making machines. So I'm an 8 out of 10, and it seeks instantly the reason why it's feeling that way. And that's why if you ask somebody who has OCD or anxiety, what they fear today may not be what they fear next month or next year, because what I value today changes.
Oh, by the way, like listening to that too. Oh my word. That feels exhausting. Like, how am I ever going to get on top of this? What do I ever do if the values are changing? So then the things I'm worried about change, and then the OCD continues to change. Like, that feels like you're just going to be chasing this forever.
Yes. That's why we focus on the problem, not the topic.
Okay.
But really quickly, before I go into that, just to finish out OCD.
Yeah.
So we talk about there's these obsessions because the intensity of emotion is pushing them to obsess about it because they're obsessively wanting to get out of the pain. I don't know if you know this, but the World Health Organization defined OCD as in the top 5 most debilitating disorders on this planet.
Including physical.
I
just read that as I was preparing for this interview.
It's terrible.
I had no idea that it was defined as one of the most debilitating diagnoses that you could receive.
Yes.
I mean, that is so profound that we're saying in all the things, physical, mental, this is one of the top 5.
And they're called the silent sufferers. They put their little smiley face on, act like everything is fine when they are not fine. When you go out into the community, 2.3% of those people have it as badly as I'm describing it. Do you know who they are?
No, because they're silently going about their day.
Because how do you explain these awful, horrible thoughts that are happening in your head? And if you tell people, they're going to go report you. They're going to send you to the police. They're going to not trust you with their children, trust to even be around you because you must be crazy.
Which again, what's our fear? Our fear as we're going throughout the world is, you know what, if people really knew this about me, if they know what my brain is like, then I will be unsafe. I will not be worthy of love and connection.
That's right.
And so therefore what? We hide it and we pretend to put on our smiley face and we go about our day.
That's right.
And they suffer in silence. So as this listener is talking, you know, I can hear that. I can hear the pain in this person that is worried about how this might affect their relationships. You can see why there's fear about that.
So you can go online, go Google OCD scan brain, or Jeffrey Locke. He wrote a book called Brain Lock, and the back of the book is a picture of a brain that does not have OCD and a brain that does have OCD. The brain that has an OCD, there's very little energy happening. OCD, there's tons of energy happening. You can see this in every anxiety disorder as well. You can see it. We in our wall, on the walls in our facility, we show all the different ones, and so we have generalized anxiety, social anxiety, panic disorders.
You have brain scans under each of these.
Each one of them, and you can see this is what it should look like, but this is what it looks like. And I even threw depression in there just for good measure. You see depression, there is all of this energy working with the brain that is not having depression. But then when it has depression, there's no movement. That's why unstacking a dishwasher for somebody who has major depressive disorder is like climbing Mount Everest.
So let's talk about that. We talked about what OCD is. What is it not? Because here's part of it too. I hear it all the time. Oh, it's my OCD. I love a clean house. I'm pretty OCD. Have you heard that a lot?
Yes.
And there's a difference, right? There's OCD personality disorder and OCD. So I want you to talk about that because sometimes I think right now, mental health, there's a lot of vernacular being thrown around. You know, it's my whatever, it's my anxiety, it's my depression. I have trauma, whatever. And I'm not trying to minimize that. But what I think it's important to understand is that people that actually do have it, that can feel minimizing.
Yeah.
That a clean house feels like is an OCD diagnosis. Wait a minute. No.
Yeah.
You have no idea what an OCD diagnosis is. So let's talk about what OCD is not.
Yes. So OCD is not funny.
Amen.
How about that? I think that people think it's weird. They make jokes about it. TV mocks it. They give this perception that it's a choice. They're just weird, right? When somebody does compulsions, the reason why they do the compulsion is not because they just, I gotta go tap this thing. I go to tap this thing. They do the compulsion because they're on fire, and their brain is saying, if you tap this many times, it might actually get you not on fire. And so they're chasing after that. That's why they're doing it. It's not like, we're all compulsive. No, actually, we're not all compulsive. Not everybody has OCD. Only depending on the study, between 1 to 2.3%, depending on the study you're reading, have it.
Yes.
So if somebody likes to sort their clothing and have it in order, okay, that doesn't mean you're OCD. And to suggest such is pretty demeaning to people who have it.
Yes.
So you have the same feeling as if somebody's running at you with a machete because you have your clothes lined that way? Or how about what's not OCD is what most of what media says. Count, or I need to check, I need to wash my hands, contamination. Great. That's like 2%, 3% of OCD. The rest of OCD is in there, a lot of times it's just in their head. Is it, I'm terrified that I might be gay, terrified that I might be a pedophile, terrified that I'm running over people, terrified that I didn't say that right, terrified that I'm going to be blasphemous, terrified that I'm going to go to hell, terrified that I'm going to make other people go to hell. How about, you got contamination, but did you know that people can be afraid of being sick, but there's a whole nother disgust side? They're just disgusted by it. How about being terrified of a city? Like the city's a contaminant. How about a person being a contaminant?
Sure.
Right? Whatever your brain can imagine.
Choose your own adventure here.
Right.
There are so many levels of this. So I appreciate that distinction because I think it's helpful for listeners to understand what it is and what it is not. And the understanding that OCD comes from anxiety, right? It's an anxious brain trying to manage overwhelm, right? But as what you're saying is really important to understand too, that the brain, there's actually a difference in our brain chemistry with somebody with OCD,
Absolutely.
right? Recognizing that. But where it comes from is this anxiety, correct?
Well, so interestingly enough that you say that, when we talk about what OCD is not, the DSM Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the latest and greatest, actually changed, and OCD is no longer considered an anxiety disorder.
When did that happen?
That happened in this last version.
My word, that is different than when I was in school. So tell me about that.
It was for me too.
And it's been that way for years.
Yes. So it is a fear disorder, a terror. They're not anxious. They're not worrying about, they don't have this impending doom. They're not, they're not trying to, they're just not worrying about it. It's like, no, oh my gosh. They are terrified. They are extremely conflicted by this thing. They're very fearful of it. A fight or flight.
So I like that distinction, terrorize versus I'm feeling anxious about something.
Yes.
When I think of terror, that feels bigger, heavier than I feel anxious about something. So it sounds like the distinction. Just it's bigger, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about ERP. Okay.
Yes.
ERP. This listener said that they're worried about ERP, right? So let's talk about what ERP is and why it's considered the gold standard. So what does ERP stand for? So
exposure and response prevention.
Okay.
So you have exposures and then you have the response prevention. Exposures are, hey, I need to expose me to this fear. Because here's the thing, is that the brain is lying, right? We've come to that conclusion. Well, what people don't realize is that every time they buy into that fear, they confirm threat. They confirm that there's value to it. So if I'm worried that somebody is judging me and I don't open my mouth in that conversation because of that perceived judgment, well, I just confirmed that, hey, look, that was a good thing that I didn't say anything. But the problem is, the brain is so dynamic. The brain knows how to figure out how to protect you the next time. So if I'm in a similar situation, my brain knows how to respond, which is, well, I'm not going to say something. But it doesn't end there. It will continue to go, and it will grow, and it will grow to a point where I don't even go to social situations. I'm not even making it to school anymore. I work at home. I like working at home instead of like, no, you work at home because it's safe. Yes. So what we have to do is we have to go and do the opposite of what the brain is saying. The brain says, don't say something. Well, I'm going to say something. And that's the exposure side. So then you have the response prevention, which really is, don't neutralize it. Don't do anything to make that feeling go away.
Okay, so let's talk about this. When we talk about therapy, it's tricky, right? In terms of what talk therapy is and what exposure ERP therapy is, right? It's very different. So often therapy, we're talking about it and we're really trying to get to the core of it. And you at the OCD and anxiety centers, you're saying, no, we're doing ERP. We're doing exposures over and over again. So I want to give you a little bit of background for me when I came to one of your centers. I came to observe, and I walked in and there was a session going on. And I was watching, and I didn't know whose exposures were what. I didn't know what their OCD, what type of OCD they had. And I sat down next to a girl, and she said, I asked her, I said, hey, could you tell me what you're working on? And she said, actually, I'm working on an exposure. I said, okay, tell me about it. Tell me what are you here for? And she said, I'm here because I feel like I'm always going to be abandoned. And I have a history of being abandoned. And I feel like if I tell people my story, that they're not going to love me. And I said, wow, that's hard and heavy. Yeah. And she said, do you mind if I share my exposure with you? Which I think was part of what she was doing it in real time.
Yes. And
she shared with me her background, and she shared with me how she had been abandoned and that people had left her. And as she was sharing, she was emotional, and I was emotional watching her because I could see how painful it was to share this with me. Yes. I mean, it was extremely exposing. It was vulnerable. It was raw. And after she got done, she said, thank you so much for listening to me. And I said, help me to understand what that was for you. And she said, one of my exposures is that I'm trying to share these experiences. And my goal is like, I want to share them because I'm afraid if I do, I'll be rejected. But the goal of the exposure is that, maybe sharing them, maybe she won't be rejected. Maybe she can share them and maybe still feel loved and accepted. Yeah. And boy, it was a profound experience for me to witness somebody doing an exposure like that and to feel her vulnerability. Yeah. And I would imagine that kind of story is probably not unique to what goes on.
No, not at all. And so two things after you say, thank you for sharing that story. It's so fun to see somebody finally rounding the curve to be able to change the trajectory of their life.
Yeah.
And so she was doing an exposure, but the other side is the response prevention side, which she probably didn't talk too much to you about that side, which was, I'm going to share this with you regardless of whether you're going to reject me or not.
Because that's the fear, that she was going to be rejected.
So I expose, but I'm going to do it anyway. But now in my head, I'm not going to make it better. I'm not going to reassure myself. I'm not going to say this, okay, she's a nice lady. She probably is not feeling this way about me. No, she actually will say things like, she probably will judge me. She probably is. And the end goal of exposure and response prevention is not that I now know that I won't do that bad thing or that thing isn't going to happen or hasn't already happened. The goal is, I don't care. Or better yet, I care as much as everyone else around me. How many people in life walk around at a 7 or an 8 out of 10 worrying that they're going to be abandoned? They don't.
They don't.
They don't. So, but I have to spend my whole life making sure I do these things to remind myself that I'm not going to be abandoned? No. I mean, I don't want to be abandoned, but I'm not going to put 2 seconds in effort, because the reality is I'm going to live life. Here I'm in this room. There's these beautiful windows looking out to this forestry, and that's beautiful. That's what matters. It's what's happening in this very moment. OCD takes you into the past or into the future, but it doesn't keep you in the present.
It robs you of your present.
Yes. And the present, that's where joy is. And so
this is why you say they're the silent sufferers, because they're not present.
No.
They're so worried about past or future that right now they can't be here.
That's right.
Right? So as you're talking about this, if we can go back to this situation where I was with this young woman, in her mind, she was saying that, like, if she rejects me, I'm going to be okay.
No, she's not.
What's she doing?
No, she's actually saying she probably is rejecting me.
She is, in fact, saying she is probably rejecting me.
So
now,
we want them to go towards the threat. We don't want to see all this other therapy in the world is all about reassuring them, building them up, positivity. But what that does is it says, well, then what the feeling I'm having has some value to it. But I'm telling you, there is no value to it. All that happened is the brain triggered incorrectly. It filtered at the thought, and it shot over to the frontal lobe, which is the reasoning part of the brain, and boom, guess what? There must be truth to it. And so, no, we have trademarked a term, which is live uncertain.
I love that.
Live uncertain. I don't know how many people on this planet that you've seen are really, truly happy that live certain.
Not many.
No.
Yeah.
Life isn't about living. I have no idea.
The truth is, no one lives certain. It's not even possible.
No, I could leave this and get in a car accident on my way home and be done.
Yeah.
I could fall down the stairs on my way out, become a paraplegic. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But am I going to spend every moment doing all these things to prepare for the possibility that something might happen? Or do I just live? And if it happens, then I guess I'll then cross that bridge when I get there. But what happens, people with OCD or anxiety are already living the life as though it had happened.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened. If you were to ask somebody, if you feel like somebody is going to murder your family, and they're obsessing about it, they're compulsing about it, like if it happened, they know what the feeling would be as if it happened. But it hasn't happened.
Which is, again, where I just have tremendous compassion, because I think living that way is a unique kind of burden that I think is hard to understand.
Yeah.
Because living that way as if it has happened, your worst fear, something that's going against your values, and you're behaving in a way, or you're so fearful of that. Yeah. I mean, that's its own kind of prison.
Yes.
So as we're talking about these exposures, they do not seem mild, right? Like you're like, no, we're going to go right to the heart of the matter. Yeah. In fact, we're saying, I don't care if she does accept me or not. Actually, that's not my goal, is to get her to accept me anymore. I don't even care if she does. So
it's not my goal.
I'm curious about this. Like, as a listener, and as our listeners are hearing this, I'm curious your thoughts about how does a person go into this and not go, you know what, no thank you. That actually sounds horrendous.
For sure.
Like, I want no part of that.
Yes.
No thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, here's how they go into it, though, is that it takes 17 years on average to find somebody who has the skill set to help them. So people have gone to traditional therapy, and it's nice to talk to somebody championing their cause that can give them some techniques to give them some mild relief. Doesn't stick, doesn't stay, but at least it gives them a little bit of relief. But they haven't gotten to the other side of it. And so they're still desperate. So people will still go, even though they're scared about it, they will do it more often than not. The problem is that they don't understand how much they need to do it. It's not a 50-minute a week kind of deal. If we're going to reformat the brain, change the way the brain reacts to the scary and fearful things that are happening, then you have to put in a substantial amount of time to get there. And so, but the other piece is that we're not going to day one be throwing you into the deep end. The goal is, hey, let's get you doing exposures. And man, you know what? I mean, for a long time, research showed that do a hierarchy. A hierarchy is, let's do a step by step. Let's start with your smallest exposure, and let's do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until you get to the top. I have done that with thousands of people, and it worked. But this most amazing thing happened. A few years ago, this research proved that it's called inhibitory learning, that the best learning that a brain can do is when it is surprised. When you do a hierarchical experience, you're anticipating the next. You're preparing for the next. Now, the best way to do exposures are using randomization. So I might do my 1, my 3, my 7, my 6, my 2, my 9 out of 10 of awfulness, right? And the brain gets better, faster, and deeper. It's the best learning. But we're going to have some people come in and they're going to say, heck to the no. I am not going to do it. Okay, well, let's have you begin to trust the process. You're going to trust the process maybe we will do a hierarchy, and let's do the small thing. Okay, like I took my shoe off here. I'll give you an example. So like maybe I'm worried about contamination, right? And I maybe put it on my face and
Oh man, by the way, for those of you that can't see what just happened, Paul just licked the bottom of his shoe.
Right? So, man, having somebody do that on day one, they're most likely not going to do it, right? But here's the thing, is that this one, for one, is I actually,
that's not a new shoe, Paul. That has been used.
It's definitely been used.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I might die. How many people do you know who's licked a shoe and died?
Not many, but I also don't know many people that lick the bottom of their shoe.
But did you touch your face to your phone today?
I did.
It was just as bad then.
You're saying the germs are just
the germs are actually worse on your phone screen than probably what's on your shoe, because you go to the bathroom with your phone, you're touching the sink, everything, all these things. We're only afraid of what we think we know.
Sure.
But anyway, so with somebody who's starting out, maybe they're not going to be able to do that. But you know what they can do? They can look at the sole, and I can look at it. Now my brain's going to want to try to make it better, going to try to confirm that that this is a scary thing. But what if I actually imagine myself just looking at it and doing this? And my tongue is sticking out. But here's the thing, I'm not going to pull my tongue in. I'm not going to look away. I'm not going to reassure myself. And within 2, 4, 7, 12, 18 minutes, that distress level will actually go down. Not because they obeyed the monster, but because they defied it.
Interesting.
And then they're going to do it again.
And so what I'm hearing you say is that we're not just all of a sudden somebody that's got a germ, that's their OCD, right? We got a germ or exposure, right? We're not asking them initially to lick the bottom of their shoe, but we're saying, you know what, we're just going to actually have you look at the bottom of your shoe with your tongue out, and then eventually we'll make it closer and closer. And we're leaning into it. We're doing the exact opposite of what our brain is saying.
That's right. So if I have social anxiety, don't I want to be able to talk to people?
Yeah.
I mean, the goal is just to talk to people. Do I want to be able to use public restrooms? Do I want to be able to drive down the street and just like everybody else? Do I want to be able to go to church and be happy when I hear them talking? Or maybe I am lying. Maybe I'm not as honest as I should be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the whole goal is to change the way the brain reacts. So I actually would rather, like licking the bottom of my shoe, I'd rather set myself up to possibly get sick and die, but have a chance at being happy, enjoying life, than having to do all of these things all the time to protect myself from the possibility that I might die.
So I think what you just said is really important, that feels more important, like living now and having happiness now than letting that fear control your life. Yes. Right? That terror, not just fear, but terror control your life.
That's right.
And that moment of discomfort is going to be worth it. Yeah. And that's what I hear at the clinics that you guys are saying, like, no, live. Yeah. Like live, do the thing you want to do, because this can feel so limiting on so many levels to people.
That's right.
So, if someone's feeling overwhelmed by their OCD, What's one piece of encouragement or direction you'd want them to hear today?
They need to go to get treatment.
Yeah.
They need to go get treatment. Your OCD, I mean, research shows mild, moderate, severe all needs treatment. But here's a common mistake, is that they go to the general therapist. General therapist will not get them better.
Because most general therapists do not do ERP.
No,
right?
No, they're going to use this other approach, which is what I learned in school, probably what you learned in school, which is not ERP. And it's not going to get them there. The second mistake is that they don't, if you have something that's considered in the top 5 most debilitating disorders on the planet, do you think you can get better with putting in 50 minutes a week of effort?
It would be nice. It would be nice.
It is not happening.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
No. You've got cancer. You're going to go to get cancer treatment for the next 6 months, 9 months, a year, week on, week off, week on, week off. You're going to do this thing, and it's going to change the dynamics of what's happening in your body.
Yeah.
And so for us, we have people come 15 hours a week, and people are like, oh, I don't have 15 hours a week. I'm like, oh my gosh, you lose way more than 15 hours a week just by existing through life. And guess what? If you don't put in the time, guess what's going to happen in a few months from now?
It's going to keep happening.
You still have it.
Yeah.
And a year from now, and 3 years, and 5 years, I have people who come back like, oh my gosh, I had a chance to do treatment 5 years ago and I didn't, and now I've done it, and I'm beating myself up because I didn't go do it. I'm like, no, don't beat yourself up, because guess what? You can live in the past or you can live in the present. And right now you're able to live in the present. We don't care that you lost life. What we care about is that you now get to start living life. But that only comes because you log in hours and hours of exposures. And it's not forever, but it is during treatment. And then, this is the other thing that people don't realize, is that exposure and response prevention is exactly like somebody who has diabetes. A diabetic is going to take insulin every single day throughout the day for the rest of their life. Yeah. It's not their preference. They would rather not have to do it, but they do it. And by doing it, they get to live a marvelous life. A wonderful life. Yes, not exactly how they would want it to happen, but very good. It's the same thing with OCD and anxiety, is that when you get triggered, you will trigger it back. And that's a year from now, 5 years from now, 17 years from now.
I just want to stop really quickly. If you get triggered, you will trigger it back.
You will trigger it back.
Boy, that sounds empowering, as opposed to I'm a victim of my thoughts and I just have to do whatever. That feels like, no, I'm actually in charge here. Not my intrusive thoughts, not my OCD.
That's right. Yeah. The initial response when you are triggered is to run away. Actually, it's called, I seek for relief, but I lead myself to pain and suffering. My daughter at 9 years old went through programming, who has OCD. And at the end, it's amazing going through this experience. And one of the things she said, 9 years old, out of the mouth of babes, she said, Dad, you have to make pain to get out of pain.
Wow. Boy, that's wisdom. You have to make pain to get out of pain.
So pain just hits you. You have a choice. Do you go left or right on that path? You go left and you run away. You feed into it. You do what it says. Guess what? Your tomorrow will be worse. Or you take a right, and when you take a right, it's going to cause you more pain, because your brain's going to say, what in the mother are you doing? Why are you doing this? Didn't you feel that 7 I gave you? This is serious stuff. Right?
Yes.
And if I keep doing it, guess what? My anxiety is going to go up even higher. And that's my brain saying, hey, guess what, dummy? This is serious. Maybe this more intensity is going to make you knock it off and go back to what we already have in the plan, which is obedience.
Oh man, we could talk about that too. We could go on about that. That is amazing. That understanding that, it's not about comfort, but it's leaning towards the pain is actually what's going to make the pain go away. That is it's counterintuitive sometimes. Yeah. It's, we think, we don't want to feel uncomfortable. But the truth is, leaning into that discomfort is where it actually makes that 7 to an 8 out of a 10 go down to a 2. It doesn't mean it goes away, but it is not controlling your life, and I really appreciate you being here, Paul. I appreciate your insights and your expertise on ERP and OCD. I can see your passion. I can hear your passion and feel it. And I think it's really important to understand where it comes from. The outcomes that you guys have at the OCD and anxiety centers are phenomenal. We were talking before that average is about 30%, and you guys are more around 72. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 73 last month.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And again, I will say my experience being there was amazing. I left hearing stories of hope and people feeling that their life had been changed because of not being controlled by OCD anymore, but them taking control and saying, you know what, I'm no longer living this way. I love the idea of it's not past focus, it's not future focus, but life is now, and that's where joy is found. And
that's right.
And that's what exposure therapy is about, right? Is saying, you know what, no, you're in charge of your life. Not OCD. It's not driving the bus, but in fact you are.
That's right.
And the reminder of that. So thank you for your insights and all that you shared. It was valuable today. And I hope this listener can come away with some insights and maybe a little less fear, right? That's the goal. It's not to be led by our fears, but to say, no, I'm in charge here.
That's right.
I hear this, I see this, but I'm in charge. So
thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. And as always, we appreciate you listening. If you have a question, write in. That is where our podcast gets its richness. So write in your questions, and we're here to answer and help. And until next time, take care.